Okay, I probably have to speak a little bit louder. How's everyone doing? Good. Good? Nice. Thank you for coming. Thank you for PlanetScale for organizing, giving us a place. Thank you, Irina, for moving mountains to make this happen in short notice. Yeah, so I actually didn't come here with a plan to speak anything in particular, so I am very happy to play by the note here. So I just want to get a quick feedback from you, a quick show of hands. Who here would say it's a primary Ruby developer? Okay. Primary Elixir developer? All right. And what else? What did I not?
Primary Elixir developer.
I'm never testing a lot of Ruby code.
Okay. All right. Cool. And so I don't want this to be a product talk. I just want to interact with folks, answer questions, debate. So there are two things that I have been working on recently. One of them is Livebook. Who here has heard of Livebook before? Okay. Keep your hands up if you're an Elixir developer, please. And you heard about Livebook. I'm trying to do the Venn diagrams here. And any Ruby developer that heard about Livebook and, okay, all right, so that could be interesting. And who here is excited about AI and AI for coding tools? Who here is not excited about it? Okay, cool. And all right, okay, I still don't know what to do. All right, so here's what we can try to do. I'm going to try to do both. So there are two things I can talk about. I think the original goal was to talk about Livebook, but there are a lot of people excited about Tidewave, even though it's not ready. So I think we can do like 30 minutes maybe.
Yep.
I don't know if I have 30 minutes to talk about Tidewave, but okay. Well, we'll figure out if it's okay. And this presentation, I gave it about Livebook. I gave it like 10 times. So giving it again is kind of boring for me. So you will be doing me a huge favor if you just ask questions and interrupt me. Okay, I will actually enjoy that a lot.
Could you do a 3-minute, 2-minute introduction to what the hell it is?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's great. All right, so Livebook, thank you, that's a great suggestion. See, interrupting works. Right, so Livebook is a code notebook platform, and the idea is that you can use it it's like a general purpose tool, so it's kind of hard to describe it, but the idea is that you can mix documentation with code, and then you can execute the code. So you can use it for all kinds of things. You can use it for documentation of a library, because you write the documentation, you have code samples, the person execute the code samples, get the feedback immediately. You can use it to do like automation, like you need to build internal tooling, so you can do that, and describe like a series of steps, like to do runbooks in production if you want to do something. Something else that it's a little bit Elixir specific is that in Elixir, the nodes can talk to each other, so you can actually use Livebook to connect to your production nodes and diagnose if something is going wrong, for example. But that's kind of the general idea. So if you use Jupyter notebooks before, this is like Elixir answer for Jupyter notebooks. And it has some like unique takes when it comes to what a notebook should be, inspired by Elixir. So the reason why I like to talk about Livebook is not necessarily to sell it as a tool, because I think it has like a lot of interesting ideas. Like for me, like when I'm working on Elixir as a programming language, I would mostly think about people using the programming language through the editor or through like maybe a terminal. But when you put your programming language to run like inside the browser in a tool like that, because it's running inside the browser, you can it opens up a bunch of like possibilities of what you can do. Okay, so that's one. So Tidewave, it's a new, so right now we have only the open source component, and there are a couple, I'm still like trying to figure out exactly, like I have in my head where I want to go, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly how it should be presented. So the idea, but there are a couple ideas that I had in my head before I created this. So one is that, who here is using like agentic tooling, like Cursor, Zed, Cloud Code, right? So we have those tools, those coding agents, but when you're using them through the editor, they are mostly looking at the code as textual, as a textual thing. They look at the code, maybe they can run something at the command line. But if you take your web app, so this is focused for web apps, okay? If you take a web app, it's actually a running system. There are a lot of things that your web app, like you have users that are connected right now, right? Like you have a background job thing running that you can query. They have the database. So for example, if you want to have Cursor talk to your database, you would have to go install like the Postgres MCP and then replicate your credentials. But what the heck? Your application already knows how to talk to the database. Just use the things that you configure in your application. And then if you apply this to everything, if you can make your coding agent do this jump, then everything your app can do, the coding agent can do as well. So, oh, it needs to talk to an API. Well, your app knows how to talk to the APIs that your app has to talk to. It knows how to connect to RabbitMQ. So the idea is like closing the gap between what the code agent can do and what you can do as a developer. Is one of the ways I like to say this, like, well, if as a developer, all we had to do, like, imagine taking the repo, like the Rails console, the Elixir repo away from you. Like, you would be quite miserable as a developer, right? But we're not giving that tool to the AI agents, right? So why we're not giving these kind of possibilities to our agents? So that's one idea, and then so that's one of the things that Tidewave does, and it does more. Like, so for example, the editors, they have to index your source code in order to know how to find things, right? But if I can run the agent alongside the web framework, your programming language, Ruby, Elixir, Python, they have access to everything. I don't have to parse your source code. So for example, imagine that the agent's like, oh, I need to find where this class is defined. And then it's going to grab your file system to try to find it, or maybe your editor parsed it, right? But if you ask Ruby, it's like, hey, where was this constant defined? There is like a method that does exactly that and is going to tell the exact location, right? Especially if you're metaprogramming. If you're metaprogramming, your editor is not even going to find it. So for me, I look at coding agents, I look at programming languages, at the runtimes. I'm like, look, there is a gap of information here that is not being used. So Tidewave basically has two components. One is the runtime component, and that's one that I have been talking about. It's open source. You can just go here. There is the steps for installing it for Rails and Phoenix. We are going to do Django next. We are doing Django next. And so that's the idea. It's closing the gap between what the agents can do and the information that is available in your web framework. But the other thing, that's the thing that we have not announced it yet, and I can do a demo today, but it's still very early on, is that the more I think about it, I think that the coding agents that we have in our editors, they are like a stepping stone. They are temporary. Because like even today, like, so when I use Zed's my favorite editor. So when I'm using Zed and then I'm using the agent's like showing me diffs, it's like telling me what to do, and I'm like, I don't care. Just do the thing. Do the thing, do the changes, do what you need to do, validate what needs to work. And then once you're done, if you did a good job, I'm going to review the code, right? Like if your coworker send a PR and it's like, oh, it's not working, but here's my PR, you're going to be like, come on, man. Like, finish the thing, right? So I feel like I feel eventually we need to, the coding agents or agents, we need to move them a little bit higher level. And I think we're going to see them being like fragmented by the specific domain that you work on. So for example, if I'm a web dev, what I want to do is that I want to have the code agent running alongside the actual page. I want to see the page. I want to see the agent. I want to be able to click things on the page and say, hey, fix it. I want to be able to click some. So, for example, if you're using agents today, how common it is, it happens with me all the time, that the agents say, hey, I'm done. And then you go to the browser, access the feature, and then you come back, why did you lie to me, right? It's like you're clearly not done. You forgot to do a database migration, right? So if you're running on the page, you can just start saying, hey, okay, you're done. Yeah, go and actually click around, execute it, right? So, and then I think we're going to start seeing verticals of this. So if I am a web developer, I want a tool that actually understands web development, actually understands the page, can click around, can see when exception happens before before I have to go and tell it. For me, every time I'm using the agent and I'm copying and pasting something that happened somewhere, that's a bug. That's something that should be addressed. So that's the kind of thing that we're going. Fuck it. I'm just going to show the demo, right? It's again, this is not really ready to. It's very early on, not really ready to be shared, but I think it's going to. Right. So here is the Tidewave website itself, right? And I'm running this on my machine, localhost, because that's the other thing, right? Like when we are building things for Rails, Phoenix, we are running usually the code in our machine, right? So the idea is that once we are done with this, you're just going to your regular web app, you're going to type /Tidewave, and it's going to open up your app in an iframe, and it's going to have the chat here, right? So that's the idea. And then if I want, oops, that's not what I wanted to click. And then if you want to do something in particular, right? Again, not sure if it's going to work. Let's say apply the style in the word intelligence to the whole, a silly change, right? But that's the level of communication that I want to have, right? I want to be thinking about the page, what is going to happen. If there's a bug, I want to click around and say, look, if I do this and this and this, that's when a bug happens, right? Yeah. So it went ahead, changed the page. So like auto reload kicked in, it went, changed the page, did the thing that I wanted to do, right? So, and then if something went wrong, it would automatically pick up that something went wrong, so I don't have to go and talk to it. I am ready to launch this. Please add a pricing table. Everything in runtime intelligence is free and open source. Page intelligence is going to be paid, whatever, right? So, yeah, again, early on, but that's the direction that we want to go. And I think like I'm doing this for web dev. If somebody here is involved with game dev, I think game development should have tools like this, should have things integrated to the game engine, right? That knows what is happening and closing this gap. Eventually are going to be lifted out of the editor, right? Mobile is going to have its own tools and so on. Yeah. So I actually did the whole Tidewave pitch. That's it. So we can go back to Livebook. But questions, yeah.
Question. So there's assumption, not fully tested, that a lot of the coding base models were trained on stuff like Stack Overflow and GitHub. But in terms of the source code there, it's mostly like what people use as inputs to the framework. For example, like root this component, display with display actor behind. Therefore, if that assumption is true, then there is less and sparser training data for result processed output code to problems. So one question is, how do you address that issue? And the second issue is for things that are repetitive in nature, for example, tables, how do you prevent that from causing different context? And yeah.
So if I understood the question right, so one is like, well, how we are going to keep things up to date as we evolve as a community, is that right? Like going...
The base models that you're using, for example, Claude is mostly trained on
yeah.
Stack Overflow and GitHub. But that a lot of that is when people post questions, they don't post this is my output from React. But they post this is my React code. I'm getting this output. How do I fix it? So therefore, the training density is going to be lower for if you have, hey, this is my output. I want to make this change versus my input. I want to make this change. How do you address that issue?
So I think, so to be very honest, I don't think that's a question for me to, like, I don't know the answer to the question because I am sitting above that in the sense. So
it's in the model.
Yes, right. It's a model question. So the trust that we are all doing when we are thinking more about AI is that the models will continue get better, right? And I assume that it's not only Stack Overflow. They have books. They most likely have books because they have lawsuits because of that. So
Even books are mostly like this is your input. This is how you code component in React. Instead of hey, this is your output for the React component. Right?
oh,
Because the output is very different. The training data for that is very different from your input, which is
okay. I think I see where you're getting, but why are you worried about the output of the component?
because the output component is faster trained for the base models compared to your inputs.
Right.
And for OpenAI and for Anthropic and for Google, their training is mostly on that source input code first of all.
Yes. So, but how do you think it's part of this equation? I think I'm missing the link.
Because when you use it to examine pages, you're examining the output of your component generation.
Yes. Okay. I got it.
So therefore, you're,
Thank you. Yeah. No. So there are a couple things. Is that it just generalizes really well in our experience. So that's the thing. Like we don't send the whole page. We don't do that because if we send the whole HTML, it would actually be extremely expensive.
That was the second question on context. But the first question is the sparsity of your training set.
Right, but yeah. So the thing I'm trying to get at is that we are really not looking at the output. Okay, so hold on. Let me see if it's. Wait, where?
Another question for context.
Where is it?
How is it interacting with the DOM or with the page?
Where is Inspector on Safari?
Yeah, those separately.
Wait, what?
You have to enable those in the settings, I think.
Oh, okay.
Maybe by not try. I think they develop it very bottom. At the end, scroll down. Yeah.
All right, that's me, a web developer. Okay. All right. I'm not sure if we have. Yeah. So one of the things that we do, as you can see, so actually so one of the things that we are doing as part of this work is exactly like how to solve the problem. Like sending the output would not be a good idea because it would look at the output and be like, okay, that's the output, but that doesn't help me in relation to the template, right? So what you can see here is that, I don't have the latest version, but I don't know if you can see this. But what you can see here is that like we annotate in the HTML your whole template rendering stack, and in the latest in LiveView 1.1, which was the RC was announced like this week, we also annotate the line where each thing is defined. And then please somebody ask me later like what Ruby could do to be better for AI, because I have no, it's not a troll, but there are things that we can improve there. I have ideas and suggestions, but we annotate everything. So when you say, look, I select this element, we send like the specific, like we send the element content, some of the attributes. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for not getting the question first.
For everybody else, I didn't get it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what we do is that, okay, so I'll try to repeat the question again. So the thing is, well, that's exactly most of the work that we have been doing so far is like, well, I selected something in the page here and asked it to change, right? So what I have in this page is HTML that was rendered by, in this case, Phoenix, but it could be rendered by Rails. So you have the HTML rendered, but it was rendered by the template, the Rails template, like ERB, I believe, or Hemo, if people still use it, right? Like, so you have those two things. And how do you know that the word intelligence, where does that map to the file on disk? And this is how we map it. We annotate the HTML with the whole rendering template stack, and we also annotate the lines. So okay, so this is one of the things that I think Rails could be improved. In order for you to be able to annotate those things precisely, you need to have a template language that knows how to parse HTML. And ERB is not that. It doesn't understand HTML.
What about Kirby?
Yeah, you may be like.
Marco is working on Ruby. It's like an HTML parser for Ruby.
Yes. So that would be very helpful, because you can keep you'll be able to keep the whole stack. If you're using something like Hemo, you would be able to have the exact mapping from the Hemo thing to the thing. But that's one of the things that is important. I think the other thing that would be important for Ruby is that, so let me show some Elixir code and some Ruby code. So in Elixir, one of the things that we did is that we made documentation first class. So I can define a module. If the font font size not good at any time, just shout, please. So in Elixir, we can do this. And then we define the function, hello world, right? And in Elixir, so we say that documentation is first class, because after this module is defined, I can get the documentation for this function or for the module anytime. It's just a function call in Elixir. And this is very good, because one of the issues, and this is what I thought your question was trying to hint at it first, was that, well, if I have a new version of Rails that Claude is not aware, with new features that Claude is not aware of, right? How is he going to know about those features, right? So you need to be able to access documentation, right? So having documentation as first class is going to be important. I think in Ruby we would do those things using comments. I think it would be important for Ruby to have a way to say, hey, give me the comments that are above my method definition and above my class definition. I think that would improve a lot, because it's not only about what is new, but it's also about version, right? What if you are on Rails 6, right? And then Cloud Code now is tested on Rails 7. You need to know. So I think you see those problems happening. Like, for example, I think there was a page, maybe Till know, that was like, is Svelte 5 the newest version ready for AI? Because for a long period of time, the AI tools, they were not ready to generate code for the latest Svelte, right? So being able to get the latest thing or the old documentation is very important. So that's something that you need to do. So I know this is a feature that exists in Elixir and Python. Ruby doesn't have it, so that's one of the tools that we are missing to provide. Like the templating language and being able to access documentation or even code comments programmatically, those are things that I think would be important to have in Ruby.
It's not in the standard library. There is a gem from Shopify to do inline typing, and it's through comments. So I'm assuming they have that functionality.
Yeah, they probably have a functionality somewhere. Also, like, I know that the LSP is going to have this functionality somewhere, right? But I would make it like part of the language. Yeah.
How is it interacting with the browser? Is it like a WebDriver interaction, or is it?
Oh, excellent question. Yeah. So how is it interacting with the browser?
Before we move on, we have things like RDoc and other ways. We have things like RDoc and
Yes.
other ways of generating automatic. One of the things that I've been wondering is how do we build, RAG or MCP or something like that would suck all automatically generated. Is that sufficient documentation, or are you talking about additional documentation?
Yeah, so in Ruby you have RDoc. The issue with RDoc, as far as I understand, so I've been out of the Ruby community for like more than a decade. I have been back and exploring things, but my understanding with RDoc is that it kind of has to be precompiled and like it needs to generate like the index so you can query things before, and that just adds friction to the
There's a bit of a different documentation culture too between like Ruby and Elixir. Elixir libraries, like the standards that like put your like actual library documentation in code. But I've seen with like you don't get that.
No, we don't document.
Yeah,
We just write tests.
yeah, and like you have like some like there's like some websites, like Google create websites where there's libraries and Rails on, but they're not really Django code, so all of that context is not present.
Yeah, and one of the things that, and if somebody wants to work on it, please reach out. So one of the things, so this is Elixir documentation if you're not familiar, and pretty much like this is documentation of Elixir itself. But if you go to any project, like Phoenix, is going to look the same, right? So we have very standardized documentation, and then we have an issue. So one of the things that I already seen some projects do, I think the MCP protocol, they have this. So this is something that we want to add to Xdoc, and it's not hard. They have this new thing now, copy page. So you can, for any page, you can just click copy page, and you're going to get like the markdown version. So something that we want to do is that we want to be able, for Elixir, for any HTML page, we want to have a MD version of that page as well. So when you click copy page, we just get that MD version, and then we can automatically generate a LLM's TXT. So I think this is great, and I think this is going to add a level. But for Tidewave, I'm like, don't make me do like the whole point of Tidewave is like, look, don't make me do an HTTP request to get this thing, right? Like the information is literally there on your machine, right? There's like, we should be able to use what is there as much as possible. That's the goal. That's kind of the idea. But somebody asked me, hold on, somebody asked.
Does it interact with the browser? Like what's it?
Yes, how does it interact with the browser?
Is that just like JavaScript or?
Uh,
I saw another version that was like Claude Desktop with your browser on the side.
Yeah, so in this case, yeah, so what we do is, yeah, so it's running within your web app, right? So that's the thing, right? It's running within your web app. It's Lash Tidewave that loads this JavaScript code that is running side by side. So we talk to the page using, it's an iframe. And then we can, through the iframe interface, because it's running same origin, we can actually do anything, get anything that we want from the page. So one of the things that I'll try to show it working that we have been developing is that you can ask it to go and do changes to the file, and that's what it did. So I can reload, the changes are there. But, okay. Let me select this and say, make this spin, but preview in the browser. I don't know if, again. So one of the things that we are doing, it's because we have everything access to the iframe. No, I cannot see it spinning, okay? Oh, yeah, okay, right? And the cool thing about this is that because we're also executing JavaScript in the context of the page, I use the word preview on purpose, because preview means do changes to the page, but without changing things in disk. So if I reload, it's not spinning, it goes back. So like those are the kind of things that we're exploring, right? Like, look, what if we elevate that out of the editor, right? And all the things that you can do if you have this. Yeah, we had more questions.
Yeah, I'm interested.
earlier brought up the tension between documentation and testing. And I would love to get your thoughts on how do you see something like this interacting with a test suite for a code base or something like that?
Yeah, so I think it would be good for us to go into more discussions about for me, that's kind of starting to ask, what about software development and what we consider to be good software development practices, like documentation, tests, right? And so the way that I use AI, right, is that I can have AI do the whole thing, but then I'm going to review the code before I submit it. And, I'm still going to submit a pull request, and my teammates are going to do it. So the way that I approach it is that I'm using it to write the code that I would write, but I'm not compromising on quality and the things that I would do, right? And I think when we start thinking about testing and documentation, I like to say that AI can monkey paw you, right, if you're not careful. So I like to say, well, I could go to this page and say, hey, I want you to improve sales. And then it's just going to go and stick a 90% discount code on top of the page, right? So the way that I think about it is that so review have to be there. So I don't think it changes how we approach testing and documentation. You have to do it. And the way that I think about it is that our day-to-day is mostly 3 tasks. We write code, we test, and we review. And I don't trust AI to do all 3 of them, right? So it can be a kind of pick 2 or pick 1 situation, but that's how I think about it. It's I know some people like to write the test first, and maybe, depending on what you're doing, you will write the test first for a particular problem, and then you can say, okay, write the implementation because I feel very confident about the specification. I like to do a lot of when I'm thinking about new APIs, I like to do a lot of documentation-driven development. I like to write the documentation first because that helps me think about the right verbs, the right entities that are in the system. So I can totally see me writing the documentation first and then trusting it can do it. I'm still going to review it, but that's how I tend to think about this. I have not subscribed. I know some people are very optimistic that, software development is just, you're just going to have AI do the thing and it will automatically merge the PR and whatever. I still feel like there are a lot of ways for us to go. And I think one of the things that I think it's really missing, since you brought testing up, is that there are several reasons why we write tests. So often we write tests to avoid regressions, and I think AI can be good at those. But a lot of the time, we implement the feature, and the reason why we can write a regression test for a particular purpose, but a lot of times the reason why we implemented that feature and the reason why you wrote that test is because there is a particular business rule, a particular business requirement, and the AI does not have that context, right? So a lot of times you change the code, you change the test, and one of them is wrong. Which one is it? And how can you trust AI is going to make the right decision over which one should change? And I don't think we are there yet. Cucumber can help. Yeah, having the specification can be very useful as well. So I think it will be interesting because there's not a lot of people exploring this. I worry a little bit that developers have been for quite some time writing tests for the purpose of just writing tests, not really asking themselves hey, why does this test exist, right? We treat a lot test as synonymous as code, but test is code, but it's not necessarily synonymous to code. And
I look at it as if there's I feel in the Ruby community, the Rails community, at least for me, and the code bases I've been on, the tests serve the same purpose that you're describing with your documentation search, which is helps me figure out how I want to use the code, and so that helps me develop what the interface should be. But then you're right that code can be documentation, or tests rather. Tests can be documentation. They can be regression catching. They can be design pressure. They can be all kinds of different things. And it kind of depends on what you want to get out of it. And you don't need to put every test right into your regression suite, right?
Yeah.
Some tests just aren't for that. really think about like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What value am I getting out of this test?
Yeah, and so I think that's an area, and I don't know the answer, honestly. Like, I think Cucumber can be a good way to go about it. Maybe we're going to see a resurgence of tools like that. But I don't think
It's like half joke.
yeah, like they said they were joking when they mentioned Cucumber. But I think we need to start exploring things like that. We're not exploring it. I don't know people doing it.
The challenge with like documenting a Ruby library for other developers to use is like, how do you make sure your code examples in your documentation are tested? Like, you say that docs are within the Elixir files. So I assume when you go to hex docs, any code examples in there are probably tested by the test suite as well.
Yes.
But it's hard to, like, we don't have that type of documentation experience. Or like with Livebook, we don't have like an interactive runtime. So.
Yeah, so, but like if you have the feature that extracts the comments from the method, then it's very easy for them to parse those comments, find snippets, and evaluate them, right? So you can start building those things. I know. Let me ask a question first. Who here is using something like, who here is using server-rendered HTML versus using React to using a front-end, back-end? Okay, server-rendered, please raise your hands. Okay.
Yeah, it's both.
Okay, who? Okay, so who?
JavaScript that your web app uses.
Yeah.
Hands up if you write the JavaScript that your web app uses. The alternative to using a library like LiveView or something.
Yeah, who use LiveView, Hotwire, HTMX? So, or just plain server-rendered? And who is using React, Svelte, or? Okay. Who did not understand the question or is not using anything? Anyway, it seems to be quite divided. I just wanted to know because, so one of the things, just a point, one of the things about Tidewave that, so some of those things, for example, that I've shown here, some of them you would find like in Bolt and Lovable, for example, very centered around JavaScript, but they own your JavaScript code, right? And not they own it in the sense like it's in their servers, right? You still own it. And so one of the things that I'm still unclear is as we continue evolving Tidewave, how do we evolve this relationship between client and server? So if you're using React with Rails, now there is a bigger gap between, and even bigger. Some things are going to be easier, some things are going to be harder. But when you look at the page now, you have the React rendered, but from data from the server and how we would close those gaps. That's why I was asking those questions. But I'll give it back to you.
I did want to ask because you were saying that the rendering happens and you're looking at like the comments that would have come from like the heaps.
Yeah.
Does that mean that like if I had like a hook that and injected like a React app, or maybe I wanted to use like Charts.js or something, would Tidewave then have difficulty understanding that? Yeah,
so that's one of the things that we have. I don't know the answer yet. I'm sure it's solvable. I'm sure that. Let's see. Oops. Good job. All right. Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure it will be able, we may need to add a little bit of hints and some things. So, and that's why, like, the thing we go with Tidewave is that we are going really framework per framework and like closing those gaps. But and now even better, like LiveView 1.1 came with collocated hooks, which means that you don't even have to go to a separate file. Wait, it went. No, okay, you don't have to do anything. Just stop. So I'm sure that we'll be able to do stuff like that, right? But like for example, how we'll be able to have a tool that knows where the particular. I am sure we'll be able to say, it will be able to know, like, this is a paychecks hook and this is using a JavaScript class somewhere. The thing that I don't know if I don't know how we'll answer it yet is when it asks, oh, where is that hook defined, right? So maybe, I mean, it can use grep, and grep will do a reasonable job of finding it, but that may be the point where we start doing other things where, because I don't think this reflection, well, maybe source maps, maybe there are going to be crazy things that we can do. But yeah, I don't know the answer yet. I think there are ways we can explore, but we are not at that point yet.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a Ruby developer for many companies and years. So I'm also building some AI coding tools. But from the examples you just gave, I think it's just too easy. Tasks are too easy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And for those type of tasks, everyone can easily copy paste into ChatGPT, and you get a response coming back to the code base.
Yeah.
Problem solved. But the real problem is if we take a look at what Cursor, Windsor, augmented AI, what they're doing right now is the pain point is actually the ability to extract the context from the code base. It's not about the front end. You can do it this way or that way. You can make a fork of VS Code one way or another. You can ship it. It's not a problem. The real problem is, as you mentioned before, you want to build some mechanism to build a knowledge map to find, oh, this method call is defined in this file, so you can have the accurate knowledge of the code base context. Yeah. But from your example, I didn't see anything of that. So from the console, from the prompts, it works very similar to what Cursor is doing today, which gets stuck all the time. So if you're an experienced developer, you try Cursor or Windsor, you get stuck very easily, especially when the code base is getting a little bit bigger. Yeah. So how do you solve that problem? Yeah. So one of the things is that the runtime intelligence. So there are a couple of things here, right? So one of the things about it getting the part of the runtime intelligence that I was saying earlier, and with the MCP, is giving the agent more tools to explore and find that context, right? But the question of like, well, there is a huge application, and when you start moving more and more away from the code, right, is and having a more understanding of the whole system, right? That's something that we are exploring a couple things. Like, well, should we? So one of the things that I have been exploring is, for example, generating syntax trees of all the things and doing relationships between them alongside documentation. Yeah, using tree-seeder and similar. That's one of the things that I'm looking at. But yeah, that's one of the problems that have to be fixed. The other thing that you said about the UI, I think the only thing, I agree with you, like those things are easy, and I can throw more complex stuff at it, and it's we have been trying, and it's doing reasonably well. And we see, like, when you install Tidewave on Cursor, it already improves considerably how much it can go. But there's one thing about the page that is helpful, is that it gives you an entry point. Okay, so for example, the idea is, imagine that you go to Cursor, and it's like, oh, I want to add a feature, this that does this, that, right? You could say, oh, this feature should be implemented at this page, if you remember to do that. But the good thing is, like, if you are changing an existing page, or if you are changing something, which you are building new things in the app, the page, like, it's a graph, right? Your web app is a graph of relationships, right? The page tells you the node where it should start looking for things. And this is better than just having the graph and having it figure out where is the starting point. So that's one of the things that I would add, that
even it's not about UI, right? So one of the things, I don't have this demo already here. One of the things that I like about Tidewave, like I say, it's talking to the page. And we didn't do anything special just because it knows where it is and then it can figure the rest. So for example, like imagine you're working on something and you add a pagination feature. One of the things that you need to test pagination is to have a bunch of data, right? So you could go generate the data by hand, or what we usually do is that we go and change the limit briefly to 2 so we can see how the pagination works. But if I can talk to the page, I'm just like, hey, this page is empty. Please fill in the data. And then it figures out, right? It knows what their page is. It starts navigating the code. It knows which models are involved for that particular thing, right? And then, or sometimes it's going to take that path. Sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, I'm going to refresh the page. It refreshes the page, get the logs. From the logs, it reads the SQL queries. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, and I think we're going to start seeing, like when we put this out and people start using it, I do expect people with really large applications should be like, this is, like maybe they'll say, oh, this is a bit better than Cursor, but it's still not enough for my app. And that will be a problem that we'll have to, at some point, to tackle in earnest. Yeah.
I agree. I think the point is, whatever you build, you have to be even just a little bit better than Cursor, then it's successful. You have to, otherwise, people will just use Cursor. Right?
Yeah, but can start a little bit better and then get little more, right? We don't need to get 80% of the Cursor users when we start, right?
When I have friends working both Cursor and Wizard, they talk with them a lot. They all start at the code-based context extraction, so they're struggling to support all the languages. But the advantage is you only focus on Elixir, which you have much smaller scope to solve. Yeah, which I believe we can do better.
Yeah, we are doing. I mostly focus on the problem of like server-side frameworks, right? And then from there, right? Maybe we'll be able to do more customized solutions when we have to think about the context. We'll see. Yeah.
Do you anticipate this being a replacement for Cursor, Zed, or those other tools, or to augment them?
Honestly, I don't know. I do feel that. So one of the reasons I'm visiting is because I was like at the AI startup event, and everybody was saying that, look, you're going to have agents, you're going to use and like people from OpenAI, they are working now on a device that is assistant, right? So there's a lot of people, we're going to use AI to augment what you do, and that actually made me think that, well, maybe this can replace Cursor, because again, it's the idea that you have to go higher level, right? That's what everybody's predicting. So I was not thinking about it. I was not thinking, oh, maybe this can replace Cursor, but now they did the inception in my head. Like, well, maybe it can, because yeah, I think maybe for web, right? Like, again, like the other way I like to talk about this is that, yeah, we write code, but the value that we deliver is not code, right? It's like, oh, the code is how we generate the value, but we're usually building features, right? We are fixing things. We are building interfaces, user experiences, right? Like a web app with a bad user experience, right? But a lot of code does not necessarily mean it's useful. And I think like we should continue trying to find ways to put AI where the value we generate is. I think if we do that, we'll have better tools. But will it replace the editor? I don't know. I can see like a lot of the time, and a lot of the things that we work, like this works great for a web app, right? I work on Elixir. Flash news, Elixir is not a web app, right? So I will still need the editor, right? I will still need the things in the editor because, yeah.
And when you do code reviews and you want to touch up some of the stuff because you care about code quality.
Yeah, and then in code reviews, you're probably going to be using something else, right? But maybe I can see like with Tidewave working out, it will probably make logical sense for us to have like Tidewave CI, just because we already have all the tools, right? And having it run elsewhere is not going to be hard. Yeah, you had a question. Yeah.
So the fun part that you're gonna find that kind of is the perpetual curse is that AI always tries to make the most simple change, like yes, you write a test, it's gonna write mocks and everything else like that. The thing I keep on running into is the fundamental attribution problem, which is where is the thing actually sourced from? So it'll go one hop deep, which is great. I'm gonna change it there because I found it. But as you're hinting at with graph database and everything else like that, you need to go 2, 3, 4, 5 hop back before you actually have to source it. So I'm curious how you think about that, but also as far as dealing with Rails, Packwork is very interesting for that. Packwork is file-based, you have graph-based, you can probably do a lot more on top of that, but we should talk later about that. I have some actual experimentations going on that. But how do you think about the attribution problem of actually going, say, 2+ apply def on that? It's a hard question.
Sorry, can you like summarize the question to make sure I got it right?
Yep. So AI likes doing the most expedient thing possible, which is one apply depth as far as search, which is here's the immediate thing I can change to make the result hit on the page. But the actual problem is not at 1, it's at 2, 3, 4, 5 hops back and say the model, the service, whatever other layer. How do you look at that problem?
Yeah, so the question, so for me, it's a very similar question to the other one that was asked, which is, well, if you're doing something and that thing, the implementation touched several layers, please correct me if I got it wrong, right? How do you know which of the layers are you supposed to touch and are you supposed to change, right? So I think part of it's going to be context and make sure that you can understand those pieces and point to the right place. And that's something that we generally, as industry, we don't have an answer yet. And so I don't have an answer, right? The thing that I'm doing right now is, again, like looking at the graph, making sure you can explore that graph and find the related things reasonably well. But as everything with AI, well, will that actually do the right thing? Is like, it's a bet, it's a guess, right? And that
Very, very hard problem facing fully Grail refactoring or any type of monolithic decomposition, which is how do you know what all this code does? And if you answer that question, you're going to be a very rich person. Now, that said, jokes aside, 1 to 2 apply depth, which is what you're inferring, is probably good enough in most cases for AI to make a reasonable enough guess. You can do things, so it's still valuable where you're at right now. It's just kind of, that's the next impossible step, and I'm kind of stuck at as well, is how do you go further?
Yeah, so one of the things at the AI event that I was at, one of the things, I don't remember, I think it was the Jared from Anthropic. I don't know if he's the CTO, I think he's CSO. But one of the things that he said is that, which I found useful, was that if you are at the edge of AI, like AI is not useful for that, that is actually a good thing. Because the hope is that it will eventually be good at that. So if you are at the edge at the things that, this is not working, right? What everybody's hoping and crossing their fingers is that maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, that becomes a solved problem. But because you're already at the edge, you're kind of ahead of everybody. So that would be an interesting way to think about it. But yeah, I don't have an answer. Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Go ahead.
You mentioned code review and maybe an integrated experience where being able to have a human in the loop for review and then maybe feeding that back in. I'm curious your thoughts on if and how that would integrate with Tidewave, what you envision.
Yeah, I haven't thought too much about that. So the question is about code reviews and integration with Tidewave. I can see Tidewave being used. The most I thought about it is Tidewave being used as a bot to maybe like fix linting errors on CI. So one of the things like with AI now, like all linting errors. So like I think Robocop has autofix, but autofix only fix some of those things. But with AI, you should be able to auto-fix everything. You should just be able to say, hey, run the Robocop thing and go ahead and fix it, right? So I see it being used a lot like that. So what are your feelings? So who here uses AI for code reviews? And who is happy with it? Please keep your hands up if you're happy with it.
It's so good, you guys are missing out. It seems like the stupidest thing. The amount of time you're wasting, like, looking for these nitpicky comments on, like, random things, the amount of outages that could have been prevented if you just had one more set of eyes. I thought it was stupid. Just try like CodeRabbit or Diamond. They're free to get started.
So which one?
CodeRabbit and Diamond are both really good. Diamond by Graphite. So
okay.
I know what's happening too, but just like having another set of eyes read your thing and catch down mistakes, it's just like polite to your team. Because there's nothing more annoying than getting a PR that's a bunch of dumb things anyone could have caught. And then you catch the code review. Now you can wait until they wake up the next day in a different time zone, make the changes, then they wait for you. It just cuts all that down to nothing. So I put up a PR. Within 5 minutes, I get a bunch of random small comments that are things I probably should have caught. Fix those before I call the rest of the team to review. Yeah,
I'll try those. I didn't find one that I was very happy with.
Even like Cloud 3.7 was fine with them. 3.5, they weren't ready yet. They need better tools, they need better context windows, they need better massaging.
Okay.
And also, when most of them are now smart enough where if you tell it like, hey, that was a bad comment, or I didn't do that, it will store that in its memory, so it will stop talking about that thing.
Okay, that's good. The memory is good, because that's one of the things where, so that's why like auto-completion doesn't work for me, AI auto-completion, because I feel like I am being constantly thrown off. Like I feel like it's all the times that I have. So if discarding something is quick, it's quick. But the thing is that you have to read the suggestion, and that throws you off from where you're going. So
imagine you just tell it while you're doing that, never do that again, and it actually never
do that
again. That was the thing that won my team over. Most of my team is not super AI built, but they walk out of it.
Nice. Kind of the reverse of what I was thinking, this is about like the AI is doing the code review.
Yeah.
I was kind of referencing what you were saying at the start, where you're like, I really want to do the code review as the final check.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you relate it to this of like teaching the AI so it doesn't make the same mistakes again.
Oh, I get it.
Cursor rules, the project rules variant, where you have like conditional rules being applied, and you can create them as you're going.
Okay, I got it.
It makes a Phoenix hook error, and then you're like, hey, this is how you should handle this. Write a rule for it so you never make that mistake ever again. Like, so maybe an integration like code review plus.
Yeah, so the question is more about the opposite. It's not about having the AI reviewing our code. It's more about us reviewing the AI code and making sure that we can use that for the AI to be better. And yeah, right now I think it's in the roadmap. We will support like the rules file. And that's how I do it as well. I just always go and change the rules file. One of the things that I want to do also, one of the things that I also want to do is to have memories. But I want the memory to be version controlled with your project. I think otherwise they're going to be like in very big trouble soon, because so CodeRabbit may have its own memory that is like different from the memory that you have from the cursor. And one of the things that I am excited, I don't know if anybody's doing that, but one of the things that I'm excited to see is, well, if we start like versioning control the memories, how is that going to impact the team? Like, you're going to send a PR that changed the memories file. Is your team going to be happy about it? Is your team not going to be happy about it? Are you going to disagree that that's a good decision for the code base? So that's what we are planning to do for that. But I think it can be interesting, to get, like, if somebody's reviewing that on GitHub, how can we feed that back into the AI? I think that can be interesting as well. Yeah? Yeah.
Question, why are you using Claude instead of Plan or even Gemini or Llama?
So, in my experience from other places, not from Tidewave, I had the best experience with Claude. So when we started, we were just like, okay, we're going to support one at the beginning because we want to validate other things. We know that swapping model is something that we can do. So yeah, we just started with Claude because from my experience, that's what I was the happiest with. But you know, we are supposed to have this for test, ignore it. But we are supposed to have like in the future, we'll be able to select other things.
Try finding the
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I'll get back to you. Yeah.
Have your own API key for Claude, or we use it like?
Oh yeah, the first version is going to be, so the question, yeah, I'm going to answer and then the question will be obvious. Like when you use Tidewave, the first version is going to be bring your own API key. Yeah. Hold on, somebody in red behind you? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the MCP integration and what's different from Rails?
Yeah, so the thing that is open source right now, so if you like this and you want to try, and feedback is very welcome. If you go to my GitHub, you'll find my email there. You are welcome to shoot me an email. So the thing that we have right now, oh yeah, this, when you navigate out, it brings you back. Because I should be doing that here. Yeah, so the thing that we have, it's an MCP tool. So the idea is that, well, you have your web app running on a port, right? Why don't we connect to that web app and have your web app be the MCP tool? We have that, so that's open source, and it's available right now for Phoenix and for Rails. And your question is, what is the difference between them, or? Oh, the difference between implementation. So for the Rails one, we are okay. So there's this crazy story, which is, who here is familiar with the original MCP SSC design? So here's the way it works. You would open up an SSC connection to the server, and that's where you would get your responses from. And then you would do a separate request every time you want to call a tool, okay? So it's like you have the SSC connection and which, if you're running this in production, if you're implementing MCP in production, right? The SSC connection could come from one machine, and the request to invoke the tools can go to another completely separate machine. There is one language, two, that are really good to implement that. Which is Erlang and Elixir, right? Because when it goes to the other machine, those machines can be connected to each other. You just send a message, and it's good to go. And it turns out that it was actually really hard to find an implementation that solved this problem and is ready for production. So surprisingly, the PHP one is really good because in PHP, nothing's shared. Each request starts a new process. So they're like, well, in order to solve this, we need to write to the database or to Redis or whatever and have those things communicate. But a lot of people forgot about this step, how you're going to have the two machines communicate, right? And the Python one, and the Python one is going to be annoying because you're running, when you're doing the SSC, so in the Python one, they're using like asynchronous, which would be, what is the name of the event machine? Do we still use event machine in Ruby? Sure. Right? Yeah, so, and in Python, it's twisted, right? Twisted. So in Python, the way their MCP is designed, because it has to be async because of these SSCs, that they use their async version of rack, the async WSGI, and which is a problem because if I want to embed Tidewave in Django, I have to use, and I want to use the default MCP implementation. That thing is async, which means that if you want to use Tidewave in Django, you have to convert your whole app to be async. So in Ruby, to be equivalent, well, now you have to convert your whole app to use like something like event machine. So it has been like a huge, and so it has been like a huge mess. But now they changed the MCP protocol to simplify it and be stateless. But I found it like very curious that the way that the protocol was designed, it's kind of like very cumbersome to implement. And I think people caught up to that really fast. And actually, it was really easy to implement in Elixir and Erlang because you don't need message queues or anything. So, so it has been kind of everywhere. But for the Rails one, we are using FastMCP. And they have a really nice API for declaring the tools, very declarative. That's something that you would kind of expect to find in Ruby. And for the Elixir one, because we decided to implement ourselves because we wanted to implement one so we understand how it works. Right? So we're like, okay, we're going to implement it. Maybe later we're going to get an abstraction out of it, or we're going to use something the community creates. But we wanted to, like, in order to understand, we need like, okay, we have to implement this at least once. But yeah, so we're using FastMCP, and I think they are working on implementing the new version of MCP, so you can deploy across multiple servers. Yeah. Oh, break time. Yeah.
Perfect timing. I get to